You know, on hearing Scott Morrison's excuses for why we don't need a federal ICAC, he actually convinced me. He's right. He's practically admitting his guilt in the answers, so well done, Scott. You saved us $60 million. Build yourself another car park on us, in your electorate, of course. You've earned it. Oh, great. That means I won't have to debase the currency again to do it. I'll debase it anyway. Look at this from the debates. The dad from Dharma and Greg asking a question. That's what I like to see. I also like to see that he's grown a beard in the time that the show is finished. So that's just a plus, I guess.
The proposal for an anti-corruption commission at a Commonwealth or federal level has been described by some of the greatest legal minds in this country as a toothless tiger at the beck and call of government. And I'd like to know what the two gentlemen here would offer to give that some teeth so that it can act independently of government, especially with public hearings.
Big fan of that guy. Big fan of the adjudicator who looks like a clone that was swabbed from DNA of Richard Moorcroft and then pumped with steroids. Big fan of everyone except for Scott Morrison, of course. He's a bit of a shit ass, and here's why. He spent the first 30 seconds of his answer on why is your version of a federal ICAC worse than the most recent Charlie's Angels. First 30 seconds to answer a man who clearly knows what's up, and he chooses to explain the difference between state and federal government.
Because one of the differences between a Commonwealth government and a state government is that a state government, there are these commissions, they deal with gambling and they deal with racing and they deal with liquor licensing and development and many of those issues. And I'm sure you've seen many examples of whether it's at local government or at a state government level where those issues have been the real subject of those sort of corruption allegations. At a Commonwealth level, you're dealing with things like immigration decisions and tax office.
Did he misread People's Forum for Primary School Assembly? Why? Actually, you'd probably be educating a lot of people. I bet you most people ring up their federal member to ask, why weren't my bins picked up on bin night? Oh, really? No one cares. I hope a rat jumps out of one of those bins and bites the kids. He's just playing for time. He knows that he can fuck up the answer because he's in front of 100 people that can see him fucking up the answer and is fully aware that tomorrow the headlines will be Elbow fumbles on boat people. He didn't. His answer was as clear as good meth. Meanwhile, to a question that people actually care about, which is why is Scott Morrison not keeping checks on factually the most corrupt government since records began? And you know what 9 Fairfax reports? Get ready for this. This is the headline. Voters don't care about integrity commission. What makes them run the headlines that voters don't care about an integrity commission is fucking amazing. Look at how they came to this conclusion. Their polling was asking, you ready for this? 7 Liberal MPs. 7. They asked 7 people who would be the target of this integrity commission, do you want an integrity commission? And their answer was, surprise, surprise, nah, I'm good, thanks. You may as well have published, perfectly normal for 30-year-olds to play around with Nerf guns in the office. 7 f***wits who work at pedestrian. It's amazing. You pick up the Telegraph and you think, no way can it get any worse that they're pretending that Anthony Albanese not only didn't win the debate, is some sputtering mental patient that's getting his mouth repeatedly kicked in on national television. But nope, you forget 9 Fairfax exists. You pick that up, and not only are they not pretending that something didn't happen that you didn't watch, they're pretending that you don't think something you think, using worse evidence than the paper aimed at dumbasses. You know who I personally think did a much better polling sample? The Australia Institute, who had a little bit of a wider net than 7 Liberal MPs. They asked 1,000 members of the public, not public servants, the public, and it wasn't as concrete as the results of 9 Fairfax, where 100% of those that responded didn't want an integrity commission, but it was pretty close. It was 75% of the population that wanted an integrity commission. Nearly half of those asked said that an integrity commission was one of their top voting priorities. Wow, these 7 Liberal MPs must have coincidentally asked every second person in their electorate. Except Fiona Martin, I don't think she could locate where her electorate is on a map. She was probably asking crocodiles in Darwin. People up here aren't concerned with the intrigues of Parliament, okay? This election is about them. They want bread and butter issues, they want chicken carcasses, and the occasional dog let off a lead. Finish!
Our proposal for a Commonwealth Integrity Commission, which has 357 pages in legislation.
I love that that's the only positive thing he can say about it. It's big! Sorry, how dumb must be the people that he's pitching that to? Gee willikers, that number's awful high. Higher than all my toes put together. Average voter in Peter Dutton's seat. Oh, you like big numbers, do you, Dixon? Well, you ready? Here's one. There's been 333 submissions on Scott Morrison's Integrity Commission. Ooh, that's almost as many submissions as there are pages. Listen to this. Not one supported the government's proposal for dealing with corruption. Not one. You'd think Scott Morrison would have at least submitted one under the name Todd Borrettson entitled How Good, but nah. Every expert in the country was saying, we know what you're up to, Scott. You're essentially creating a drug front just so you can say, no, we have an integrity commission. Here it is, time sharing in this Caltex, like sometimes they have Boost Juices sharing the rent. One staff member find anything, James? Yeah, that's right. You didn't find shit. And the reason he didn't find shit is because our government, the government of Bridget McKenzie, Angus Taylor, Barnaby Joyce and Christian Porter, has nothing to hide. Yeah, and Scott, can I just ask, who set up the government's anti-corruption commission proposal? Christian Porter. Christian Porter set the fucking thing up. You may as well have asked Eddie O.B. There's a man who's had completely consensual sex his entire life, as has Christian Porter, to the best of my knowledge.
And a budget of 60 million, which is in the budget.
That amount is less than even ICAC gets, which presides over just New South Wales, and that's after the New South Wales Liberals gutted its funding, meaning it's a husk of its former self, and you can bet they're going to gut it again, as even with no arms and no legs, it's still hobbling after Gladys. So I guess he's right when he says,
I've seen these integrity commissions in my own home state of New South Wales, and I've got to say, I haven't been impressed.
Yeah, of course he's not impressed. And you know why? Because it actually works. ICAC in New South Wales was a tool set up by Nick Greiner. They essentially wanted it to be a taxpayer-funded dirt unit on the Labor movement because they believe their own propaganda that they spew out of. Who's more corrupt, the nurses union or a Thailand cop? Just asking the questions. But unfortunately for them, you actually have to hire educated people to run these things. They're not the usual yes men that you can chuck on the Fair Work board and look at that. The man that set up ICAC was the first one to get busted. Oh, stick a cock in your mouth and suck that, Nick. Nick Greiner, more like Dick Grinder. Yes, like this video if you get it. 3 premiers in total, offed by ICAC, all of them in the Liberal Party. No wonder Scott Morrison's not impressed by ICAC, eh? No wonder he wants a model that every legal expert in the country can see through, like Scott Morrison charging the taxpayer $190,000 a year for an empathy consultant so he can learn to start his answers with,
it is something that I understand, and so I understand how people are feeling.
I could understand that he was very upset. I understand their concerns about these issues.
Ooh, I understand you spent nearly 200 grand of our money on learning the basic point of men are from Mars, women are from Venus, which is if you say I understand, people feel understood, but you say it too much, so you look exactly like what you should have been in real life, which is the boss from The Office trying too hard with some HR training that they learned on the weekend. But you know, in the Liberals' plan for the Integrity Commission, it would only be able to investigate corruption if it was criminal, and they have to reasonably suspect that it is. So they're getting paid $60 million a year to do nothing, basically. How's that for the government of cutting off the fat? The elite have written the legal definition of corruption, so it's only corruption if you say it's corruption. So signing trade deals that benefit the other country so you get a cushy job with them after you retire, that's not corruption. Giving a road contract to your brother at twice the cost of other quotes isn't corruption. Basically anything that the average person would say, yeah, that's clearly corruption, isn't corruption. All the behaviour that made us slip 7 places in 1 year on the corruption index, which puts us on a similar level as f***ing
Uruguay,
isn't corruption under Scott Morrison's Corruption Commission. You know what else isn't corruption under Scott Morrison's Corruption Commission? The Morrison government. The Morrison government can't be investigated by the Corruption Commission. How much more clearly can you convey to the public, yeah, we've got some stuff to hide, and yet the press hides that? Meanwhile, Labor's Corruption Commission ticks virtually all the boxes of the Centre for Public Integrity's wish list, which is made up of legal experts devoting their time to strengthening corruption commissions across the country. And that's before their policy had the chance to be subjected to the parliamentary submissions process. But just remember, guys, don't listen to the Centre for Public Integrity or the International Transparency Index. You listen to the dozens of comments in this video that'll say, "When will you admit that Labour and Liberal are just as corrupt as each other?" Well, then validate yourselves by voting for Labour so they can set up an independent corruption commission, you idiots. That'll teach those corrupt Labour f***s. Come on. Help me with my sinister intention of replacing one government with an equally corrupt government for no reason at all. Remember, kids, 3 and 4 want a corruption commission. So you tell everyone you know Labor was the 7th least corrupt government on earth. The Liberals slipped all the way down to 18th, and according to all the experts, they are only interested in hiding their corruption more while Labor is setting up a proper anti-corruption commission. You check out Friendly Geordie's The Facts. We've got a bunch of articles talking about the instances of corruption from this video and more, all presented in an easy-to-share style with no crass jokes to upset your bum. Get my new range of t-shirts while you're there. And remember, idiots, if you think Labour is just as corrupt as the Liberals, make sure you vote Labour number 1. They'll probably misspell Labour as Labour on the ticket because you're so much smarter than them. But don't let them get away with it. Don't let them hide from you giving them a number 1. Prove them wrong with an anti-corruption commission.
G'day Australia, Nolsey here. Now, I've got a bit of a message here. Australia needs an anti-corruption commission. The Centre for Public Integrity has warned that we are sliding in the transparency ratings. So bring on a federal ICAC.
Please share and comment below. Comment.